Hi everyone, Dermot here again, just doing my second video on the YouTube channel, and it's a quick update really on the challenge which I mentioned on the first video. So it's the 50-day challenge, 50-day PLO challenge, which I done the first day of yesterday evening, and I wanted to quickly talk through how that challenge is going to work a little bit and introduce some of the situations that I went through having done my review of all the hands, or all the important hands at least. So I'll run through that, and I was actually thinking of doing these after doing the different tutorials on the different aspects of PLO. But I think in a way this might be good. It's a bit back to front, but what I'll do is I'll talk through the daily findings, if you like, and then tie them in with the pre-flop, post-flop, all the different videos covering the different parts. So it's going to be a little bit back to front, but we'll see how it works. So first and foremost, the challenge is going to be, as I mentioned, 50 days playing €200 bullets, three €200 bullets. So in other words, buying in for 200 in what is a 1-2-5 game. It's normally 9-handed 4-card PLO. Sometimes there's a straddle on and such like that, but generally it's a straightforward 1-2-5 game with people playing anything from €200 up to much greater than that, depending on what stage of the night it is. But the 200 is the minimum buy-in, so so that's what I'm buying in for. As I said, it'll be 3 bullets. I think again something that I'll cover in the general PLO guidelines is generally I think it's good to have 3 bullets, because the natural variance of the game is you can't guarantee on any night that you won't stack off with a whole heap of equity 2 times in a row, and it's nice to have a 3rd bullet. Me personally, I like to, aside from this sort of challenge or this YouTube channel or anything, I personally find I don't try to buy in more than 3 times anyway. I often find that if I've stacked off 3 times, I'm not running well. I'm probably a little bit fed up by that stage, and yeah, for me personally, 3 buy-ins has a ring to it, and it means that normally speaking you'll get a few hours play, unless you're very unlucky. And also it means you don't do too much money on a given night. So yeah, so look, that's the structure. And this particular place that I play, it does basically 2 types of leagues. It does a 2-month league, which is running, in this case, January, February, and then they do sort of a monthly league. And without boring you with all the sort of ins and outs of that, essentially, if I'm playing every night, all things being equal, I should qualify fairly comfortably for all 3 of those leagues. So it'll be the January, the February, and then the sort of joint, what they call I think they call the cash league. So that the joint, the combined period, if you like. So there'll be 3 separate leagues, and how they work is, for people that don't play much, it's essentially there's $1 or €1 out of each pot that goes into a sort of a kitty, and then at the end of the month, the top 10, top 20 players play off, and yeah, clearly that's sort of, if you like, free money, even though of course in practice you've paid for it along with all the other players. But that's the nature of the league. So the idea will be this challenge be qualify for those 3 leagues, hopefully make some money out of them, of course, and then also each day of the 50, at least added together, hopefully make some money out of it as well. So we'll see how that goes. So that's the challenge covered, and I'll sort of keep you up to date on that. So last night anyway, I had my first session, so again €600. I didn't actually touch 200 of it. I bought in for 200. I'll talk you through some of the hands, and it's interesting. After playing for about 6 hours last night, the whole night was boiled down to actually 11 hands, which was interesting. You'd think it would be a lot more, wouldn't you, after that amount of play? But when all was said and done, I was up about €120, which I was happy enough with. And as you'll probably hear from my play, or from the description of these 11 hands, I won't go into them all ins and outs, because it would make the video run for an hour probably, or more, if you went into all the details of them. But certainly the top line findings was quite interesting. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the themes in there as well. the hands I made money on, the hands I didn't make money on. So that's it. So net I was up 120 profit, which was good. Good start to the 50 days. But to be honest with you, I don't think I played that well. And when I reviewed, there was more than 11 hands noted. There was one or two smaller little spots mentioned, but they were what I would say fairly standard. I raised, I got called, and I missed the flop, and I folded, that type of thing. Um, but of the 11 sort of noted hands, uh, what's interesting is probably the one thing that stands out is hand structure, and that's something that I'll talk about a lot. There'll probably be a standalone video on that about I'll probably call it pre-flop hand structure or something like that. And I have notes and material on that, which is pretty much probably the most of everything in PLO. If I was teaching somebody who had never played cards before, even or never no idea about poker at all, that would probably be the one thing above all things I think in PLO that's the key. It's if you're starting with bad structurally bad hands or combinations of four cards that just don't structurally make sense, um, I think it's almost impossible to win. It doesn't guarantee if you start with good structured hands that you will win. Of course, you won't always. But I think in the long run, that's the key to get into hands. Start the hands with proper thought out structures based on the number of players, based on the stack depths. But most importantly, having good solid structures in your hand that can make really positive hands on the flop and later on in the hand as well. So, the first hand, for example, that I played, just to quickly mention it, was one of these sort of straightforward enough hands. I had Ace King Jack 8. And again, this is something that I'll cover in my later on in the actual sort of specialized specific videos. But this is a very good hand structure. I have three Broadway cards. I have Ace King Jack, three Broadway cards. I have an ace, which is important as well, and we'll talk about that a lot more later on in the videos. And even the worst card of the four, being an 8, is somewhat connected to the jack. We'll talk a little bit more about that. It's not as connected as I'd like it to be, but it's much better than it being a 2 or a 3, for example. And I also have a suit. Importantly, a suit to the king, unfortunately, instead of the ace, which is also an important distinction. But just as an example, this was a hand where I lost. I don't have it written down here, but I'm pretty sure I had my notes on my phone. Of course, I wasn't carrying this thing with me at the during the cards game. I was just jotting down my notes on my phone, but I'm pretty certain it was 15 euros I lost in that hand. I opened with it. I was called, and the flop came completely against me. And unfortunately, I don't have the flop down here either. But that's beside the point. It probably came something like 4-5-6. So I completely missed the flop and I folded. The point of hand structure is that when you miss, you lose you lose the minimum, or at least you lose a lot less than you would had you been playing a really weak structure. So that was a straightforward hand, but it was a good example of a hand that, okay, I lost money on, but that's a hand I'd play again. And that's the type of hand you want to be playing. Three Broadway cards. Ideally, you'd prefer the suit to be to the ace, but even to the king, it's not too bad. And there is various flops. For example, if the flop comes the ace of spades, you have top pair, and now you have the nut flush draw to the king. So you're prepared to play a big pot there in a lot of cases. So that was a sort of I suppose a hand that I played okay, but I lost on. But then there's a whole heap. There's four hands, 1, 2, 3, 4 hands, which I specifically didn't play well. And these are hands that fall into a category of hands which I would call two hold'em hands, or double suited trash, or 2 to 3 gapped hands. So what I mean by that is two hold'em hands, a classic hand, which is the third one down here, which I have, which is ace queen of hearts, 2 5 of spades, and I lost about 80 quid on that hand, which it doesn't sound that much, but actually with a lot of poker players, they come home after a night, take me last night, and they go, oh well, I won 120 quid, I must have played very well. That's not always true. Another way of looking at it is, if I didn't play that hand, the one I mentioned, ace, queen, 5-2. Double suited, yes, but really it's two hold'em hands. It's 5-2 of spades and one, ace, queen of hearts. Yes, the ace and the two and the five are a little bit connected, but not much. If I didn't play that hand, or if I was, I don't have it jotted down here. If I was the big blind, maybe I lost a fiver instead of 80. All of a sudden, my profit last night is over 200 quid. And who's to say it's not cumulative? Sometimes you lose 80 quid early in the night. Who's to say you wouldn't have doubled that 80 quid later on? Or who's to say by saving that 80 quid you mightn't have been able to get a little bit more aggressive in another spot? So, every mistake you make, you have to try to have a look at and be really careful of. And probably, when I look at this day review, that would be the big thing. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, there's a sun coming in the window there, which isn't a bad thing on the 2nd of January in Dublin, I can tell you. But there's a number of hands like that, and that would be the one thing that I'd say. The hands that I lost money on last night were, another one was Queen of Hearts, 5 of Hearts, 6 of Diamonds, 8 of Diamonds. Very bad hand to be in a pot with. I didn't lose big amounts, but I think I lost 35 quid. But that's a classic hand. You should stick it in the muck pre-flop. The other one that I took note of was 2-3 of clubs, 10 Queen of Diamonds. Classic case of a hand that gets you into trouble. I actually had a very almost identical hand. I'm pretty sure it was the 10 Jack 2-3 that I got eliminated from a tournament on in Portugal during the summer. Very bad hands to play. Whenever you see in your four cards two hold'em hands, independent hold'em hands, so hold'em hands that in the most part 9 times out of 10 won't be connected, so 2-3 10 queen, even if it's double suited, stick it in the muck, move on, wait for a better hand. They're really, really dangerous hands. With that particular hand, what came on the flop was 9-2-3 with 2 diamonds. So I had the diamond, the third nut diamond draw, if you like, with bottom 2 pair. And that was actually my first bullet gone, that particular hand. I had to go up my hand at that stage. I had 2 pair and a reasonably strong flush draw. The guy against me had a set of 9s, and no club came, or no diamond came rather. So but it's a classic type of hand that gets you into trouble. There are many flops where you'll flop a decent piece of it. You'll feel like you've too much hand to fold, but in reality, you're often behind. You're behind your opponent when the money goes in, and again, they're just really bad from a structural point of view. So they're the hands to avoid, guys. Double suited hands, don't get carried away with. Just because it's double suited doesn't make it worth playing, especially if it's 2 independent hold'em hands. Classic examples there: 2-3 10 queen. The other one I gave was ace queen 5-2. There's another one here which looks a little bit better on paper: 7-8 jack queen. That was with 1 suit. 7-8 jack queen, and the problem there is 2 gaps. So when there's 2 cards disconnecting, so in that case 9 and 10, really, really careful with them. Really, really problematic hands, and they're the type of hands that cause people to stack off and lose a lot of money. So hand structure is key. I suppose just to remark on a couple of hands that went very well. I tripled up with aces. I had ace 10-6. I tripled up with that hand. Again, that's not the strongest aces you can get. I had 1 suit in that hand. I had nut hearts, ace of hearts, jack of hearts, and ace 6. But with the stack I had, I think I had 190 quid at that stage in my stack. I was happy to get it in and managed to get a triple up. And then another hand, which was again one I didn't play great. It's not a spot I would have loved. I actually flopped 3 pair. I flopped jack 10-6. So important, if you flop 3 pair, always check if there's a made hand, and in this case there wasn't. So I was willing to play for stacks, and luckily my 3 pairs stood up. I'm assuming the other guy had a draw. Almost certainly he must have, or else he had top and bottom pair and didn't show. but certainly I don't love getting it in with 3 pair in the flop, but it's a lot better than 2 pair because you have an extra blocker. You also have that possibility that I mentioned where someone has top and bottom, and you have top two plus the bottom one, so you're in reasonable nick against that hand. But that was one of the hands that I doubled up on towards the end of the night, which actually made the night a profitable one. So guys, that'll do me for today. Thanks for your time. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope there's one or two little tips or findings that you may be able to use in there. And as I said, this will all build into the main videos, which I'll do later on in the month, hopefully bit by bit. So so thanks very much. Have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.